The biker community is one of the strong, knotted, closed groups you can ever come across. They would give their blood and flesh to fight for their brothers and save the reputation of their club. But there are times when things go out of their hand and they all land in trouble. Do you know any notorious motorcycle clubs? Do you want to hear spine-chilling real incidents which took place in these clubs? Well, brace yourself and let's dive into the video.
Brett Kaos Pechey makes a dramatic shift to Rock Machine Gang after being the most celebrated biker in Bandidos and Brothers for Life biker gang. There is a hidden reason behind his decision, and everyone is shocked to know that he made such a bold move. Why would Brett take such a decision? Did someone threaten him, or did he make up his mind on his own? Brett Kaos Pechey was not an ordinary man. He did not lead a life with peace. There was no ounce of normalness in his day-to-day life. He was the most wanted man in the list of police officers. He has a unique look to him with his broad shoulders and tattoos all over his body, including his face. He used to post pictures of him holding guns on social media. He led a life full of violence, and he enjoyed every part of it. The reason he was doing all these uncommon and uncivilized criminal activities was because of his involvement in a notorious gang. Bandidos is not the regular biker gang you see in your hometown. They ride bikes, but their minds were fueled with revenge and criminal activities. They made headlines almost all day due to their notorious involvement in various crimes. No one could stop them. They were internally very strong, and it was hard to get membership in the gang. No one dared to go out of the gangs once entered. They stayed loyal and gave their life to the welfare of the gang. The bonding between the members and their dark mind to do anything that the gang needs is what made it difficult to get them split. The police officers knew that once they were able to split the gang members and make them lose their gang spirit, it will be very easy to spot and catch the members. More than regular bikers, the number of criminals in this gang is high. Every member of the gang has a criminal record and they aren't even bothered about it. Being caught by the police is not something new to them. We have to travel back to 1966 to know from where this gang came together. There will be a dark past filled with unpleasant incidents for such a gang. It was in San Leon, Texas. The gang was originally formed. Even though there were many outlaw motorcycle gangs, during that time, it was the largest outlaw motorcycle gang. There were 900 members in the gang and overall 93 chapters. It slowly started growing and people started joining in. The membership increased to 2,500 people, and this spread to 13 other countries. The club earlier existed only in the United States of America, but now it's in 13 countries. This was a big achievement to them. Their rival motorcycle gang, Hell's Angels, were also expanding at that time. The criminal involvement of Bandidos is mainly on the transportation of drugs. They transport and distribute drugs, like cocaine and marijuana. They are also involved in the production of methamphetamine. They became unstoppable at the peak of their club's increased criminal activity. Red and gold are the colors they chose for their gang. Everything in the club has those two colors. Brett Kaos was one of the members of the club, but he was the most notorious one. He was fearless and was ready to do anything the club demands. The life of Brett changed on 17th of December 2023. Something terrifying happened in bustling Kingsway City Shopping Center. This video clip you are watching was taken from a CCTV camera footage in the shopping center. Here Brett can be spotted running away from Brad Baker and Clovis Chikanga. They are the biker members of the Mongols gang. As soon as this video hit the internet, people started mocking Brett for running away like a little boy. Some even couldn't believe that Brett ran away like that without showing any kind of courage. He didn't even try to fight the Mongols. Instead, he ran away from there as soon as he could. This action of his was not accepted by the biker gang. When Baker and Clovis approached Brett in two cars, they expected fearless Brett to pull a dangerous move on them. As they expected, he pulled a knife out of his pocket and pointed at them. Baker blocked him from one side while Clovis was ready to run over him. The plan was solid, and they were confident that they could attack Brett easily by executing this master plan. But something unexpected took place. As Clovis was waiting in his car, he saw Brett running towards his side with a knife. He thought that Brett would attack him brutally, but he saw him running away. The most notorious criminal in the Bandidos gang decided to flee the location after being scared. He didn't try to fight off his attackers or even tried to negotiate with them. Instead, he ran away like a scary cat. When the video went viral, he was ridiculed. Brett portrayed himself as a fearless gang member. He was the most respected one, and that's why no one expected a cowardly move from his side. During the incident, Brett was in the Rock Machine biker gang. He has changed gangs 3 times, and Bandidos saved their club's face as he was not their gang member anymore. What did the Rock Machine Gang do after watching the viral video of Brett Kaos? On 3rd of January 2024, the Rock Machine Gang announced that they have nothing to do with Brett, and he is no longer connected with the club. This came as another shock to everyone because they never thought that he would get expelled from the club for this video. Even though this video shows the real face of him, it made people find the credibility of the biker gang. Another similar club is Hells Angels Motorcycle Gang, but they are more notorious, making them the most dangerous motorcycle club in the world. The Hell Angels, the world's most deadly motorcycle club, is shrouded in secrecy and deadly secrets. Once you're inside this club, it's almost impossible to get out, and not even the devil can save you. For committing heinous crimes, several of the members have even served life sentences. What caused these angels to become devils? Why are they more infamous than any motorcycle club, including Rock Machine? Adam Lee, who was charged with the 2011 triple murder in Berkshire County, was the most notorious member of the Hell Angels Motorcycle Club. Adam wasn't the only one who killed people. David Chalu and Kaos Pechey assisted him. There will be no parole for any of them. They were all given life sentences. These 3 men had no regrets and carried out the crime in the most ruthless manner imaginable. Robert Chadwell, Edward Frampton, and David Glasser were the victims. The Hell Angel motorcycle riders shot them all down, slicing them to pieces. The victims' dismembered body parts were hidden inside a plastic bag, and it took the police 13 days to find them during their investigation. The triple murder that occurred in David Glasser's Pittsfield home stunned the entire world. Hall's persistent denial of prosecutorial misconduct and his desire for a new trial made him the one with the most criminal mind and intention out of the 3. The case received a lot of publicity and significant media coverage. People wanted to know why these 3 murders had occurred. The court found Adam guilty and sentenced him to 3 consecutive terms of life in prison. Robert Houle was a cannabis farmer in the past. He made the snap decision to end everything and to stop growing cannabis illegally. Robert ceased growing cannabis for Neil Cantrell at the same time. Neil did not interpret it correctly. Stephen and Robert Lowry's Hells Angel were in his range. His son is Stephen. Each of them assaulted and battered Robert. When things don't go as planned, they want everything to happen on their terms, which is what drives them to commit this crime. There was nowhere for them to flee after they were apprehended by the police. After the court found them guilty, Stephen received a 6-year prison sentence, and Lowy received a 9-year prison sentence. Neil was also found guilty and given a 10-year prison sentence. Neil was 62 years old when he violently attacked Robert and was sentenced to 10 years in prison by the court. He even made him write off all of his properties to them after scheduling a meeting with him. This was a grave offense, and it was obvious what he intended to do. The Hell Angels create a frightful atmosphere in their club. Due to their voluntary involvement in criminal activities, they put others in danger. Many of them didn't even plan to kill anyone, but they commit such serious crimes during intense fights that they end up behind bars for decades. Emery Martin, who was detained for dealing cocaine, went by the alias Emery Pitt Martin. Emery was taken into custody in 2018 as a result of an RCMP investigation. He had a lot of power inside the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, and he abused it. He was convicted by the court of trafficking large quantities of cocaine and sentenced to 15 years in prison. This veteran of the bloody bike war in Quebec recently talked about his time spent in jail and had nothing nice to say about it. His total prison sentence for multiple offenses committed at different points in his life was close to 20 years. Martin contributed very little to the cocaine supply. He introduced individuals with like interests to one another. The buyers and sellers were linked by him. He used to use encrypted phones to talk to his friends who supplied drugs because he was afraid of being discovered. He is one of the few members of the Hell Angels Motorcycle Club who has taken precautions to avoid being discovered. However, things weren't always going well for him. Even though many Hell Angels are extremely old, they continue to commit crimes. They view incarceration as merely a room and age as a number. They don't express regret, and the majority of them are eager to complete their sentences because they know they can resume committing crimes after their time in prison is over. People are still afraid to approach them because we don't know how they would respond. There are numerous documented instances of people being taken advantage of and even robbed while walking by. They are hardly merciful at all. David Giles received an 18-year prison sentence. He was continuously engaged in illegal activities and was occasionally apprehended by law enforcement. He received the longest prison term ever handed to a member of the Hell Angel, 18 years. He was a known criminal who was constantly on the alert. He was taken into custody for allegedly transporting enormous amounts of illicit substances. The judge who read out the reasons for her decision to sentence him to 18 years in prison was Carol Ross. David was 66 years old and not in the best of health at the time. One of the main grounds for his incarceration was the nature of the transaction. The court discovered that David intends to initiate this transaction as a business and that he has such interests. To avoid having to deal with it later, they pricked it off from the beginning. David spent 7 years in jail prior to his trial, making his total incarceration 11 years. Because of that, the judge was gracious enough to give him credit for those years off his sentence. In the meantime, David's health was getting worse. David's poor health was brought up in court by his lawyer, who stated that he required a liver transplant. The prosecution contended that David ought to serve a minimum of 20 years in prison due to his significant involvement in a global cocaine conspiracy. David passed away in the Abbotsford Hospital 3 months after beginning his lengthy sentence, so he was unable to complete it. Some members of the Hell Angels Motorcycle Club regard themselves as leaders. They organize into small groups and drive around on their Harley-Davidsons, plotting heists and robberies. They typically also include their family members in their gang. We have one such story next. This father-son team, Norman Cox and Rob Thomas, received a 15-year prison sentence for the murder of Dane Phillips. Phillips's attempt to settle a dispute was the only factor in this murder. 2 teenage boys and Phillips' 2 sons were fighting. Resolving the conflict in the midst, as any loving father figure would, was Phillip. But he had no idea that these 2 teenagers were affiliated with the motorcycle club Hell Angels. Phillips was attacked by Norman Cox and Rob Thomas using a hammer and baseball bat. His 2 sons stood by helplessly as the incident unfolded. Phillips was also assaulted by Matthew and Anson Shell. 4 of them were opposing a single individual. The sons of Phillips were taken aback and afraid because they never imagined that a quarrel would lead to their father's demise. They struck Phillips mercilessly and viciously. As they battered Phillips with a baseball bat over and over, they intended to kill him. When the murder occurred in June 2011, it stunned people everywhere because it revealed the Hell Angel Motorcycle Club's global connections. It could be someone's last day of life if they become involved with a Hell Angel member. Men were then granted pretrial credit and given 12 years. The Phillips wife responded to her husband's passing. According to Jeannie, Phillips was the father of her 3 sons and a kind man. They really do miss him being gone. Phillips was unarmed when he passed away, as even the court noted. It was never his intention to hurt Norman and Rob. He desired peace and the settlement of the dispute. With this, the court made it clear that there had been a homicide and that there had not been a brawl between the 2 parties. They killed Phillips by purposeful assault. The Hell Angels members are prohibited from entering the country by law enforcement. They have a rebellious mindset and disregard all laws. The Hell Angels Motorcycle Club's members dislike the limitations placed on them and believe their resiliency and strength to be far greater than those of average people. This club's selection process is hazardous to your mental and physical well-being because it requires you to endure prolonged, excruciating pain. Once inside, you and your newly formed rebel gang are free to roam around on your motorcycles, preferably Harley-Davidsons. Typically, they meet up at a local bar or club to catch up. You are now aware of this club's most infamous members. This was the same situation for Brett Kaos. He was prepared to fight and had no fear. These Hell's Angels, in contrast to him, will not flee from an attack. Let's take a look at another set of clubs that you need to know. Due to the extreme difficulty of entry, not even the devil can save you once you're inside this club. Some members of the group have even served out their entire life sentences for the horrible crimes they committed. A few motorcycle clubs, however, were feared by the Hells Angels. Would these groups be more infamous than the Hells Angels? Which motorcycle club rules supremely? Glasgow is where the Blue Angels Motorcycle Club first emerged. This motorcycle club was founded in 1963, and it hasn't looked back. There are a ton of members in this huge outlaw club. Numerous people are influenced by the club. The logo makes use of the colors green and yellow. The winged skull conveys a sense of dread while the colors look vivid at the same time. The club's name is written in a Gothic script. The club members wear jackets with the logo printed on the back. Members of the Blue Angels clash with various groups. In Scotland, Hells Angels was unable to start a chapter. The Blue Angels made their mark on the nation, and they take great pride in the fact that no American influence exists on their territory. The Hells Angels are unable to establish dominance, no matter how hard they try. Known as the Po-Bob, this motorcycle club is made up of the enraged bastards of Purdue. The club became well known very quickly. The American Motorcycle Association authorized the Gypsy Tour Run. As a result, bikers from all over the world gathered under one roof. The bikers showed them their strength and controlled the streets for 3 days in a row. The American Motorcycle Association abruptly canceled the tour due to the commotion these bikers were causing. Random clubs started fighting in every house, and things were spiraling out of control. Merely 1% of motorcycle riders consistently disobeyed the law. Some chose not to participate in any criminal activities. At first, the Headhunters weren't a motorbike group. Their love of riding bikes had nothing to do with them. They were a well-known street gang that committed a number of crimes. They later made the decision to switch to biking as their new hobby. The Headhunters Motorcycle Club was established in this manner. The club distinguishes itself from other clubs by capping membership at 30 individuals. As a result, the club was added to the list of top motorcycle clubs. For their logo, they used the primary colors of red, white, and black. New Zealand is where the club is primarily active. The club has a very small membership, but its members adhere to the street gang mentality. They are very skilled and violent. Fighting against them is almost impossible to do without suffering damage. There was a murder that happened during a celebration. Another member of the motorcycle club was brutally killed by the Headhunters. There were no witnesses when the case got to court. Everyone was astounded by this, and it demonstrated their level of power. The Vagos are a San Bernardino-based club. The club first appeared in 1965 and began to terrorize the people of California. This motorcycle club is causing the law enforcement agency a great deal of headaches, so they are tired of it. They engage in horrible crimes and break the law like it's nothing. The club gives the impression of being a mafia due to its actions. The club has a history of criminal activity. The club never once gained a positive reputation, not even once, from drug smuggling to assassinations. The club members' attire featured a lot of green. They were therefore very recognizable. The club was founded by Mexicans. To honor their culture, they decided to use the color green. The club enters into commercial and philanthropic agreements. They also possess a positive side. Because of its notorious reputation, this crazy motorcycle club is punished for any crime that takes place. In court, cases against them are dismissed. Some members even sued for defamation in response to the unfounded accusations. Though less dangerous in terms of competition, the club has more influence. They also participate in good deeds. Few people have looked into this club's other side. While we dig deeper into the notorious clubs, we shouldn't miss out the next set of clubs we are going to say. These club names might be very familiar to you. The Hells Angels and the Vagos Motorcycle Club make an ideal rivalry because they both refuse to back down from their notoriety and danger. Vagos has a sizable global network. The majority of the club's members are Hispanic riders. They adhere to a set of guidelines and directives that they have created, and breaking all U.S. laws is one of those guidelines. In the club, there is a rigid hierarchy, and members pay attention to one another. There's a fraternity in the club. The club has a strong network established in California, where it has its roots. Fighting them off in their homeland is nearly impossible. How can we tell if someone belongs to Hell Angels or Vagos? To demonstrate their unity and make it simple to identify each other, they dress in green clothing with a spade pattern. Although they don't all wear the same color, the Hells Angels are known for their mostly black attire and distinctive emblem. There's a winged skull on the back of their dress.
That was a good ride, real good ride. Good job, brother.
So, were you surprised we could keep up?
Well, you're still standing up.
I don't know about what you guys think we heard last night, but Sholo Rick said, on the res, White River. So we're now out of White River, so I'm thinking if we're gonna see them anywhere, unless we've already missed them, we'll just wait here for a bit.
Due to decades of disputes, the Sons of Motorcycle Club has a reputation for being one of the oldest motorcycle clubs. To be a part of these dangerous motorcycle clubs, you don't even need a motorcycle. All you need is a strong enough mentality to break the law. And you can spend many years in prison before you realize how much time you've wasted. Members of the club don't reveal any personal information about one another or their activities, creating an air of secrecy. They dislike having anyone meddle in their affairs. It is only after they are arrested that common people like us learn about them. Resignations from the Sons of Silence Motorcycle Club are extremely uncommon. They are incredibly loyal and trusting of one another. The Breed Motorcycle Club is a group with a peculiar past and a lengthy criminal record. This club was founded by a group of African motorcycle riders, and over time, it garnered a lot of support from motorcyclists. The club flourished in the 1960s because racial discrimination was extremely pervasive at the time. African Americans lacked a forum on which to express themselves and get assistance. It is well known that the Breed Motorcycle Club hoards firearms. The club's members are from a variety of backgrounds. The club engages in a lot of charitable and community-oriented work, unlike Hell's Angels. Since they don't come from a stable financial background, they try to better their lives. There has been a lot of tension between the Hell Angels Club and the Comanchero Motorcycle Club. Their competition is location-based and primarily occurs on the Australian continent. The two clubs have a long history of animosity toward one another. They have occasionally escalated their animosity to uncontrollable measures and have used violence to express it. One incident that demonstrated the intensity of the rivalry was the Milpera Massacre, also known as the Father's Day Massacre. The two clubs were present at a public event in the 1980s when it happened. The Comanchero members fired first, starting the fight. A bystander and members of both clubs were among the 7 fatalities. You'll be completely shaken down by the Black Pistons Motorcycle Club. This brings you to Satan's Syndicate, the most perilous group we have been anticipating. Given that they have no mercy and no regrets, it is the most deserving foe of the Hells Angels. It is inconceivable how brutally they are involved in criminal activity. The public first became aware of the seriousness of the club's illegal activities in 2014. The Black Pistons violently attacked Christopher Stone, and it was because of this incident that the club's true nature was revealed. Which rival motorcycle club is best suited to destroy other formidable motorcycle clubs? We told you Brett Kaos' story at the outset of the documentary. We want you to be aware of the dangerous and infamous Luke Maloney as we draw closer to the end of our biker's world. When Luke Maloney was arrested by police for assault, he was just 43 years old. Being the president of the Hells Angels Club, he was well known among the riding community. It was unexpected for him to carry out this deed, and ultimately, he was found guilty. Why would Hells Angels president do something so heinous? Would he avoid the hands of the law? To see what happened with him, let's pay attention and watch the video. Luke served a year in jail and was even put on a good behavior bond for a full year. $1,500, as found in Melbourne County, was demanded of him. 22 was the year he attacked a former member. Luke wasn't by himself. There was another member with him. Everyone on the team looked up to Luke as the team leader. The majority of the members displayed a penchant for extremely aggressive behavior, and they mostly traveled in Harley Davidsons. The membership of the club exceeds 3,600 individuals. Because of his ties to the rival club, they singled out the victim. They drew extensive sketches of the victim for days on end. Then, when the time was right, they decided to charge at him. He was beaten severely and injured by a wooden bat. Despite the victim's attempts to flee, the two were able to apprehend them. Subsequently, they seized the victim by his nose ring and prevented him from fleeing. They gave him multiple slaps. Even though the victim was bleeding, the attackers showed no pity for her. The victim attempted to flee and break free from their grasp, but was apprehended by another attacker. The victim was hauled down by the third attacker, who grasped him by the legs. Somehow, the victim managed to get away from the perpetrators. At the reservoir residence, the victim was abused by Maloney and Montebello. Despite having committed multiple offenses, it's unclear if they will choose the morally upright course. Strong evidence was found against them, and their phones were confiscated. CCTV footage worked against them as well. They were completely ensnared. They had to endure protracted legal proceedings. The third angelic member stayed put. He was accused of assaulting the young victim as well. The attackers were Cain Montebello and Luke. Luke carried poison, even though he didn't attack the victim very much. After the two attacked a man in his 20s, he suffered serious injuries and had to be hospitalized. He will need a significant amount of time to heal fully after being admitted to the Royal Melbourne Hospital. Both legally and morally, the incident was unjustified. It revealed Luke and Montebello's evil nature. They attacked the victim because they were outnumbered and knew that their actions could have far worse consequences. Luke was the club's most important member. He wasn't just a participant. Due to his tenure in high positions, the police were forced to follow him around. He'll use his influence to have the sentence reduced. This remarkable case is not over yet. Do you believe he will be able to clear himself? How had he gotten himself into this predicament? How had he gotten into a club this dangerous? Maloney was taken into custody in April of 2022. The detectives from the Echo Task Force took him into custody. While looking into drug trafficking, the detectives discovered a connection to the Hells Angels Club. They were curious to learn more about it. It was then that they learned of the ongoing legal matter involving Luke. They considered asking him questions and looking into him more, which would allow them to gain access to the Hells Angels Club. He could assist them in some way because he had voluntarily disassociated himself from the group and was no longer an active member. It's unlikely. He may or may not reveal the sinister details. 2 homes, as well as a reservoir, were searched by the police. They discovered drugs and an AK-47 knockoff. Steroids and cocaine were utilized to promote human growth. They also discovered a sizable sum of money. Called Cool Hand Luke, Luke Maloney oversaw the Angel City Charter. He was appointed national president of the club in July 2021. Luke was a devoted and ardent participant. He was well aware of his status as an influential member. He was a highly skilled boxer in the past. He was aware of his opponent's weaknesses. Any new move thrown at him, he knew to tackle it. He was a skilled boxer who could quickly defeat his opponents. Consider yourself a member of this club now. They have formally recruited you. Do you not think that announcing one's disassociation from the club would be extremely difficult? There could be a risk to your life. Luke Maloney accomplished it with ease. The police officers became doubtful after hearing this statement. Whether he resigned from the club completely is debatable. What legal repercussions did they face? The two were found guilty of extortion, possessing poison, assault, causing serious injury recklessly, assault with a weapon, and purposeful serious injury. When they attacked this victim, they were being held on bail for a different offense. The attackers' coordinated actions were highlighted by the judge. Luke acknowledged carrying stolen goods and poison with him when they entered a guilty plea. Prescription forms and illegally obtained medications were discovered during a search of his home. Luke continued by declaring that he was no longer a Hells Angels member. He chose to voluntarily distance himself from the club. $1,500 was the fine that was demanded of him. A 12-month good behavior bond was also given to him. The judge took into account Luke's steady relationship with his partner and child, who is 10 years old. They have not been harmed by him. This demonstrated his positive traits. Montebello was requested to make a payment of $1,217. After being found guilty, he received an 18-month good behavior bond. Maloney will appear in court on February 20th to argue against a charge of drug possession. He disputes having any drugs on him at the time of the attack. We will have to wait and see if he is found guilty or not of drug possession.
A crowd is waiting to know the verdict. It is evident from the Hells Angels Club's history that this is not the first instance of this kind. Many cases have been brought against its members. Everyone returns to the club and carries on with their activities. For them, it's nothing new. They have adapted quite well to the violence that permeates the club. They constantly engage in conflict with rival clubs in an effort to establish dominance. We will never know which of these clubs will survive. The deadliest clubs are yet to come, and for that we have to wait. A strong culture has developed around motorcycles and the clubs associated with it. There is not even a single motorcycle club which performs without violence. A few motorcycle clubs made their signature through violence and their rigid regimes.
Which club fears you the most? If you ever get a chance to join a motorcycle club, which club would you choose to be part of? Let us know in the comments.